Good evening, live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman Television. Here we present to you tonight's news bulletin. But first, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq issues a royal decree. His Majesty the Sultan sends a cabal of condolences to His Highness the Emir of Kuwait on the death of Sheikh Nouriya Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Mubarak Al-Sabah. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq bestows the Order of Merit upon Raoul Restucci, Managing Director of Petroleum Development Oman, handed over by His Highness Sayyid As'ad bin Tariq Al Said. And greetings and best wishes of the Chinese leadership to His Majesty the Sultan are conveyed to His Highness Sayyid Fahd bin Mahmoud Al Said by the State Councillor and Foreign Minister of China. Thank you for joining us. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq issued Royal Decree number 31/2021. Article 1 replaces text of the first article of the Royal Decree number 35/2014, establishes a scientific authority named College of Sharia Sciences, affiliates it to the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Innovation, and enacts the provisions of the attached system. Article 2 replaces the text of the fourth article of the mentioned Royal Decree number 35/2014. Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the College of Sharia Sciences issues regulations and necessary decisions to implement provisions of this decree and attached system until they are issued. The current regulations and decisions shall be enforced, which shall not contradict with its provisions. Article 3. The attached amendments shall be made on the system of the College of Sharia Sciences attached with the mentioned Royal Decree number 35/2014. Article 4 cancels all that contradict with this decree and attached amendments or contravene with its provisions. Article 5. This decree shall be published in the Official Gazette and come into force from the following day of its issue. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of condolences to His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, Emir of Kuwait, on the death of Sheikh Nouriya Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Mubarak Al-Sabah. His Majesty the Sultan received a cabal of thanks from His Excellency President Qais Said of Tunisia in reply to a cabal of greetings sent by His Majesty the Sultan on the 65th independence anniversary. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq has bestowed the Order of Merit upon Raoul Restucci, the Managing Director of Petroleum Development Oman PDO, in appreciation of his efforts and kind contributions in his field of work. The medal was handed over by His Highness Sayyid As'ad bin Tariq Al Said, Deputy Prime Minister for the International Relations and Cooperation Affairs. The handing over ceremony was attended by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed bin Hamad Al-Rumhi, Minister of Energy and Minerals, and Their Excellencies the Secretary General and the two advisors at His Highness's office. His Highness Sayyid Fahd bin Mahmoud Al Said, Deputy Prime Minister for the Council of Ministers, received today His Excellency Wang Yi, State Councillor and Foreign Minister of the People's Republic of China. His Excellency the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister conveyed the greetings and best wishes of the leadership in China to His Majesty the Sultan and Omani government for continued success and for Omani people's steady progress and development. During the meeting, the two sides reviewed the growing and historical bilateral relations between them and means of enhancing their cooperation in all fields, as well as the latest developments on the regional and international arenas. His Excellency the guest expressed the importance of his visit to the Sultanate due to its positive aspects in terms of exchanging views on a number of issues of common concern to the two friendly countries, affirming his country's appreciation for the efforts made by the Sultanate in supporting the process of internal construction and consolidating friendly relations with everyone. His Excellency indicated that China is ready to cooperate to enhance dialogue and understanding between countries in order to reach just solutions to crises that ensure peaceful coexistence among peoples in order to devote themselves to develop and construction in a safe and stable environment, praising the exchange of views with officials in the Sultanate because of its positive results on the level of Omani-Chinese relations. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Hamad bin Hamoud Al Busaidi, Foreign Minister, as well as the accompanying delegation of the Foreign Minister and State Consular of the People's Republic of China, and Her Excellency Li Lingbing, Ambassador of China accredited to the Sultanate of Oman. Exchanging cordial talks on relations March binding the Sultanate and China topped discussions of His Excellency General Sultan bin Mohammed Al Nu'mani, Minister of Royal Office, with His Excellency Wang Yi, State Consular and Foreign Minister of the People's Republic of China, and his accompanying delegation. During the meeting, the two sides reviewed a number of joint cooperation spheres and means of enhancing them, which serves joint interest of the two friendly countries. They also discussed a number of issues with mutual concern. A session of political talks between the Sultanate and China was held today at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The two sides affirmed their support for boosting investments and tourism exchange within the framework of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative so as to achieve mutual benefits. The two sides welcomed the entry into a joint agreement between the two countries for the mutual exemption of entry visas between the citizens of the two friendly countries and the agreement on cooperation in the field of science and technology. The session dealt with bilateral cooperation relations between the Sultanate and China in a range of economic, scientific and cultural fields. The two sides also exchanged views on a number of regional and international issues of common interest, stressing the importance of resolving disputes peacefully and through dialogue between the various parties. During the session, the Omani side was headed by His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Hamad bin Hamoud Al Busaidi, Minister of Foreign, while the Chinese side was headed by His Excellency Wang Yi, Chinese State Consular and Foreign Minister. On the sidelines of the Chinese officials' visit, His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Hamad bin Hamoud Al Busaidi, Foreign Minister, and His Excellency Wang Yi, State Consular and Foreign Minister of the People's Republic of China, unveiled the monument to the Chinese navigator Cheng He, which was agreed to be built in the city of Salalah as an expression of the symbolic significance of the visit Cheng made to the Sultanate 600 years ago. The Sultanate and China signed an executive program for cooperation in the fields of media, health and culture for the year 2020 to 2024. From the Omani side, the program was signed by His Excellency Sheikh Khalifa bin Ali Al Harthi, Under Secretary of Foreign Ministry for Diplomatic Affairs, while from the Chinese side it was signed by Her Excellency Li Lingbing, the Chinese ambassador accredited to the Sultanate. You are watching the Sultanate of Oman television, and yet to come in our news bulletin, Sultan Qaboos University launches semi-regional virtual seminar on UNESCO Chairs program. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The Ministry of Health announced that 796 new cases of COVID-19 have been registered in the Sultanate, bringing the total number to 156,883 cases. The total number of deaths reached 1,662. The total recovered cases reached 142,944, which is 91% of the total recovery rate. The ministry indicated that the total number of inpatients reached 505, among which 161 are in intensive care units. The National Committee for Family Affairs, in its first meeting of the year, discussed the national cooperation program between the government of the Sultanate and the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, as well as the proposal of protecting children's rights in criminal justice, support family studies, in addition to reviewing the report on the current situation of the marriage and divorce in the Sultanate. The meeting also focused on recommendations that were implemented during the third meeting of the committee last year. It further discussed the recommendations of conferences and scientific studies regarding families' fields. The meeting was headed by Her Excellency Layla bint Ahmed Al Najjar, Minister of Social Development, Chairman of the committee. The Sultan Qaboos University launched the semi-regional virtual seminar on the UNESCO Chairs program. More detail in the following report.
The seminar was organized by the Omani Education, Culture and Sciences Committee in cooperation with the offices of UNESCO in Doha and Cairo. A number of academics and experts from the UNESCO and the Sultanate universities took part in the seminar. It aimed to shed light on the UNESCO's Chairs program, its fields and specializations. It also focused on mechanisms and ways to benefit from the program in various scientific and economic fields. Now also highlighted the speculations of heads of UNESCO chairs, in addition to exchanging expertise among them. The seminar also targeted the heads of universities, academics, researchers and employees of the National Committee. It is worth mentioning that the Sultanate is considered one of the first countries in registration of UNESCO scientific chairs, such as Marine Biotechnology Chair, Earthquake and Tsunami Dangers Chairs, among others. This seminar came to support scientific research and innovation in the Sultanate in accordance with Oman Vision 2040.
Salvage teams today set free the colossal container ship that has halted global trade through the Suez Canal, bringing an end to a crisis that for nearly a week closed one of the world's most vital maritime arteries. Engineers have partially refloated the Ever Given that's waged across the Suez Canal, but the massive ship is still blocking traffic. The canal services firm says tugboats pushed and pulled the ship. While the full moon's tides rise, the water level dredged are also removing mud and sand around the ship. The skyscraper-sized Ever Given became stuck in the canal last Tuesday and has held up $9 billion in the global trade each day. After hauling the fully laden 220,000-ton vessels over the canal bank, the salvage team was pulling the vessel towards the Great Bitter Lake, a wide stretch of water halfway between the north and south end of the canal, where the ship will undergo technical inspection. Despite the worsening humanitarian situation across war-ravaged Syria, it's been getting tougher every year to raise money from global donors. The aid community is bracing for significant shortfalls ahead of a donor conference that starts today in Brussels and is being co-hosted by the United Nations and the European Union. Pledges were already dropping off before the coronavirus pandemic, mainly due to donor fatigue. Officials fear that with the global economic downturn spurred by the pandemic, international assistance for Syria is about to take a new hit just when it is needed most. Across Syria, the pandemic has compounded the worst economic crisis since the conflict began in 2011. The local currency has crashed and food prices have soared, increasing by 222% from last year. 9 out of 10 people live below the poverty line, and in northwest Syria, close to 3/4 of the 4.3 million residents are food insecure. The United Nations and other end groups are seeking more than $4 billion for aid within Syria at this year's conference, their biggest appeal yet. A joint WHO-China study on the origins of COVID-19 says that transmission of the virus from bats to humans through another animal is the most likely scenario, and that a lab leak is extremely unlikely. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus acknowledged that he had received the report over the weekend and that it would be formally presented by the mission experts tomorrow. The findings offer little new insight into how the virus first emerged and leave many questions unanswered, though that was expected. But the report does provide more detail on the reasoning behind the researchers' conclusions. The team proposed further research in every area except the lab leak hypothesis. The report is being closely watched since discovering the origins of the virus could help scientists prevent future pandemics, but it also extremely sensitive since China bristles at any suggestions that it is to blame for the current one. You're watching the Sultanate of Oman television, and before we end tonight's news bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq issues a royal decree. His Majesty the Sultan sends a cabal of condolences to His Highness the Emir of Kuwait on the death of Sheikh Nouriya Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Mubarak Al-Sabah. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq bestows the Order of Merit upon Raoul Restucci, Managing Director of Petroleum Development Oman, handed over by His Highness Sayyid As'ad bin Tariq Al Said. And greetings and best wishes of the Chinese leadership to His Majesty the Sultan are conveyed to His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Said by the State Councillor and Foreign Minister of China. And with that, we do conclude this news bulletin. We would like to remind you to keep following the precautionary measures of wearing face masks, washing hands, and keeping physical distance from each other. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studio, it's good night and stay safe and healthy.